He does eventually get over his stage fright, I do assure you. And actually, we find something else that we find very helpful here from a newspaper later on that week, and it is the prologue that was written for that very first performance of professional theater here. It is a prologue, and a prologue's a bit of verse, something to beg the audience for your indulgence, for your forgiveness, for as you've been, relatively polite, an audience of the 18th century was not quite so well behaved. When you came to the theater in the 18th century, you came to have your opinions be known and your passions be moved. And as we are about to give you a prologue from that first evening of professional theater, the 18th century, we will look to you to be our appropriate 18th century audience. So if you see something you like, something you approve of, it might be met with uproarious applause. Bravo! Well done. Well done. And encore.
Medium rare.
Encore.
And what does encore mean?
More.
Again, absolutely. Perhaps you had a particularly good verbal comedic jab for which Shakespeare was known for, or even an elegant death from a tragedy you might wish to see it again, and thus shout,
Encore.
Pick him up, dust him off, and kill him again. Your servants. As I've also stated, Shakespeare was known for his villains, so it is within your right to boo and hiss.
Boo, hiss.
Soundingly good at that, I see. Very good, very good. Well, please keep all of this in mind, for as we're about to have for you a prologue to the Muse. And the Muse, we all know now today perhaps better as those comedy and tragedy masks, those who we must offer up thanks and rewards to when performing here upon the stage, for our lives here upon the stage are in the hands of the Muse. So without further ado, please welcome our actor forward with the prologue, the Muse.
The Muse still labored to increase her fame, summoned her agents quickly to appear. Haste to Virginia's plains, my sons repair. The goddess said go, confident to find an audience sensible, polite and kind. We heard, and straight obeyed from Britain's shore, these unknown climes adventuring to explore. If for us then, and our Muse, thus low I bend, nor fear to find in each the warmest friend. Each smiling aspect dissipates our fears. We ne'er shall fail to find protection here, for the stage is ever wisdom's favorite care. Accept our labors then, approve our pains. Your smiles shall please us as equal to our gains. And as you all esteem the darling Muse, the generous plaudits you will not refuse.
Bravo.
Now that you've had your prologue, we shall also offer you a pair of monologues, both drawn from one of the great histories of Shakespeare, Richard III. Now, if you know anything about the play Richard III, you know it is about the evil king, Richard, who begins the play as the Duke of Gloucester, and of course by the end has installed himself as the King of England. Of course he does so by murder, lies, and manipulation, even having his own poor young nephews murdered after imprisoning them in the Tower of London. Also manipulating to see the deaths of his two elder brothers before he himself comes to the throne. Now, if you saw Richard in the 18th century, something you should know is that it was an adapted version of Richard, an adaptation done by Collie Cibber. And it had quite a reputation for bloodshed, this play did, especially the adaptation. Now, if you've ever seen Richard, do you know there's a great monologue at the beginning, and who gives this monologue? Richard himself. It begins with the words, "Now is the winter of our discontent." Well, guess what? That monologue was stricken from Mr. Cibber's version. You see, he cut that monologue and he replaced it with a scene of violence at the beginning of the play. You see, people seem to have liked bloodshed in the 18th century. As it turns out, it was not an original composition. He actually drew that opening scene from the closing scene of Henry IV, Part 2, where the old king is murdered by Richard, Duke of Gloucester, and some henchmen. So you actually begin the play Richard with a scene of action, as opposed to a long-winded monologue. Well, however, I should say that Cibber's version was also known for a very good speech given by Richard a little bit later into the play, where he speaks of the cost of greatness and those attributes which a king must have, or any person who comes to power. And to deliver the speech in the character of Richard, please welcome Mr. Presley.
Now by the hand of St. George, the work goes bravely on. How many frightful stops would conscience make in some soft heads to undertake like me? Come, this conscience is but a convenient scarecrow. It guards the fruit which priests and wise men taste, who never set it up to fright themselves. No, for they know it is only rags, and they gather right in the face of it, while half-starved, simple peasants to fear are but honest. Why were laws even made, but that we are rogues by nature? Conscience, ha! It is our coin, for we live by parting with it. And he thrives best who has the most to spare. For the rejecting lover buys hope with it. Old misers cram their avarice with it. The impatient, hungry judge dines on it, and quickly hangs the guiltless rather than eat his dinner cold. All have their share of villain. Why then shall after ages think my deeds inhuman, when my worst were but ambition? Even all mankind to some loved ills incline. Great men chose greater sins. Ambition is mine.
Bravo!